This is your Game of Thrones news update. Warning, there are spoilers for season 7 of Game of Thrones, so if you don't want spoilers for the next season, please, dear God, don't watch this video. You've been warned. So tons of cast sightings in Belfast for filming of Game of Thrones, and they've already started to reroute traffic around Titanic Studios, which is a studio that they do a lot of Game of Thrones filming in order to avoid noise disturbances, which means they've absolutely started filming at this point. Which means we're about to get so much filming leaks and news that I'm just gonna lose my mind. And it looks like a few scenes might be being filmed right now as the actors for Littlefinger, Sam, the Mountain, Cersei, Varys, Jaime, Mira, Yara, Tyrion, Ilaria, Jon, Bran, the Sand Snakes, Euron, and others have been spotted in Belfast. Also, I am absolutely loving all the cast photos popping up on Instagram of just random actors and actresses taking pictures with fans, and my absolute favorite so far is Littlefinger's actor, Aiden. I mean, seriously, it's such a hipster teenager posing in a fashion magazine look. His pose is fantastic. He even has that "I'm so cool" expression. Just cracks me up every time I see this picture. Another cool picture came when the actor that plays the Mountain released a picture of himself in partial makeup for filming scenes with his helmet on. And I cannot wait to see more Mountain mayhem this next season. You know everyone is absolutely terrified of Cersei at this point. They're afraid to say anything negative. You talk shit about the Mad Queen, and her little friend is gonna come and bash your head into a wall or the floor. So seeing the tension in King's Landing is one of my I'd say my top 10 most look forward things for season 7. I want to see Cersei being a Mad Queen and how people are terrified of her and her just strict rule over everything. I also want to see Jaime being a bottom bitch. Continuing on with filming, it's been leaked that one of the scenes being filmed recently is a sea battle involving Yara and Theon, which most likely means that Euron, and we're not going to question how he got the trees on the islands that don't have trees to build his 1,000 ships and how he already got around the bottom of Westeros to intercept Daenerys and her fleet. We're not questioning it. I'm sure next season it's going to all be explained. It's all configured on their timeline. They got this. But somehow Euron has intercepted Daenerys' fleet, and he's not too happy with his niece and nephew, ruining his plan of trying to woo Daenerys with his giant cock. Which is really disappointing. I was really looking forward to more Euron dick jokes. Wrong. The only person that should be making dick jokes in this show is Tormund, goddammit. It's so likely, and this is just speculation here, Euron tries to kill his niece and nephew for ruining his plan, and if he still tries to ally with Dany, even if he tries at this point, she's like, no thanks, and then Euron goes to Cersei. Or this whole thing starts because Euron knows his plan failed, he allies with Cersei, Cersei gives him some more ships, and as Daenerys gets closer to Westeros, he attacks. And I'm not a Daenerys hater by any means, but I really didn't want her to show up at King's Landing without any type of resistance. I would love to see a sea battle, and I think I said that in my Game of Thrones finale review. I don't want Daenerys to just show up and kick ass. I want this to be a little bit rough for her, and I also want those two to go at it, Cersei and Daenerys, and then after Daenerys most likely kicks Cersei's ass and takes over King's Landing, Daenerys then realizes, oh shit. I was focused on this fucking throne when there's a huge problem coming down and it's going to destroy all of us. And then she realizes that she was so focused on the throne that she didn't see other threats that were coming, and maybe if she hadn't engaged in this battle, her forces wouldn't be as depleted as they are, and she would have been a bit stronger to take on the others. Not that Daenerys really could have known what was going on, but, you know, you get what I'm trying to say. Continuing on, Murder, She Wrote actress Angela Lansbury will not be in season 7 of Game of Thrones. I really don't know how this rumor started. I think it actually started months ago, and then it became quiet, and then maybe someone blogged about it, or a news site saw the article, didn't check the date, and was like, oh shit, I need to report on this, and then it just blew up. Her representatives have said absolutely no, she's not going to be in season 7 of Game of Thrones, so hopefully this rumor can just die. Not that I don't want to see her in Game of Thrones, she's a fabulous actress. If they Put her in a role for a future season, I think she would be phenomenal. HBO has arrived in Spain to start their preparations, getting ready for Game of Thrones Season 7 by hiring local crews before shooting begins. A new location in Spain for filming was recently announced and will be used come October. As well, the royal dockyards of Seville have been added. While the shipyard would be perfect for a landing scene such as Daenerys' fleet, of course the area could be used for a place such as Old Town. The actor for Dario, when asked if he knew if he would be in a future season of Game of Thrones, responded that he does know, but he's not supposed to spoil that. And going back to the dark side of me, I really want him to show up as an ex-bitter lover and sort of fulfill a little bit of a prophecy we see in the books that probably doesn't matter too much in the show. But to show back up and go to Daenerys and be like, you know, I loved you and you threw me to the side. Fuck you. But don't listen to Rawrist. She's not a good role model. In Northern Ireland, the set for Winterfell is being constructed or spruced up in other areas, which means we're about to get some leaks about what's going on in Winterfell, and honestly, this is my most looked forward to area in Season 7. I'm really interested in Daenerys and Cersei facing off, but I want to know more what Jon's going to do about the others and how he's going to try to stop them. If you're worried about House Mormont, which with Lyanna, I think every other house should be worried about themselves, there are locals in Belfast that say that some of the extras have been casted as House Mormont soldiers, which really isn't a surprise that House Mormont is going to be seen again in Season 7 for several factors. First, and I think most importantly to the showrunners, Lyanna Mormont was a fan favorite, and in the past, when an actor has been a fan favorite, they've been sure to include them more in future seasons. As well, Jon Snow was very close to Jeor Mormont, and that was like a father figure at the wall. And then continuing on later, when Jon was at his most desperate point and he needed people to be with him to fight against the Boltons, House Mormont stood by his side. He was a bastard of House Stark, and they still said, you know, we're going to honor our vow to House Stark. So House Mormont has really had Jon's back. In general, House Mormont has been very loyal to the Starks. There has been an exception here or there, but they've had House Stark's back. And Jon is going to want to keep that house close to him or give them important tasks or reward them in some way. And I know there aren't a lot of happy endings in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, but I really hope House Mormont doesn't become extinct and they're around long enough to be rewarded in some way for their loyalty to House Stark. In Game of Thrones news that everyone has heard by now and already has their own speculations for, Jim Broadbent has been casted for a role in Game of Thrones, but so far his role is unknown, but it is considered significant. And I'm sure the major theory out there, which I have and everyone else does, is that he's Marwyn the Mage. If you're not familiar with Jim, he has been in such films as Superman 4, Moulin Rouge, Iris, Gangs of New York, The Chronicles of Narnia, Harry Potter, Cloud Atlas, and so much more. He is a phenomenal actor. And quick refresher, or for people that haven't read the books, Marwyn is an Archmaester of the Citadel and basically what I consider an intellectual badass. But most importantly, this guy has traveled a lot, studied with warlocks, and is very open to things that other maesters shun. So if Sam's going to meet up with anyone in the Citadel and try to figure out how to push back the Night King and the others and the undead, it's gonna be Marwyn. On the other hand, he could always go to meet Daenerys and be her maester, which would be particularly helpful for Daenerys to have someone around that knows about dragons and magic and all that stuff, and also knows, and I don't think this is gonna be a huge deal in the show, but knows about the maesters and how they allegedly don't really like dragons and we're trying to snuff them out. Pedro Pascal talked about how he got his role on Game of Thrones as Oberyn Martell, and it's not as exciting as you would hope it would be. He just simply called in a favor with a friend, which I think was very fortuitous because he was the best part of anything involving Dorne. Anything. The Game of Thrones election is over, and the winner is Jon Snow with Lyanna Mormont. Daenerys was in second place, and Littlefinger in third. Cersei was in a far, far fourth with 2%. And I encourage you to go to thegotparty.com and see the campaign videos, especially the attack videos. They're all really good, but Cersei's is especially chilling. Hint, shame. Lastly, in George R. R. Martin news, because I really enjoy stalking him, it's like a fucking second job at this point. But after almost half a month of being quiet, he released a blog post and said, hey, I was really busy in August, and basically said he didn't write shit for August, but now he's home and he's writing The Winds of Winter. And in my headcanon, what he really wrote was, The Winds of Winter will be done by December. No, it won't. But I'm gonna pretend because I like pain. George then responded to a fan that asked if he was going to be at a Game of Thrones convention next summer, and George said, "No, I'm not scheduling any other conventions until I finish The Winds of Winter." And you may start to scream, and you may be thinking in terror, oh dear God, that means he doesn't think he's going to be done with The Winds of Winter by next summer. That's not what that means. It means that he's being cautious and he's not adding any new conventions until he's done. And I'm sure he will be done by next summer. I've screamed enough for the both of us. It's gonna be okay. So that was your Game of Thrones news update for this week. Please like this video and come back every week for new Game of Thrones news updates when there's enough Game of Thrones news to do a Game of Thrones news update. If I am no longer satisfying your Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones content needs, you can always check out other awesome channels that do Game of Thrones and a Song of Ice and Fire content, such as Tony Teflon, BarTube, History of Westeros, and Civilization X. I think people are surprised to know that I'm completely sober when I do these videos. I'm just naturally really obnoxious. They don't take my word for it. Reading Rainbow, motherfucker.